Here we go. Okay, welcome, Michael Wagner, to the Biodigital Convergence Transhumanist Report. It's great to have you here, man. I've been watching your content on YouTube, watching some of the conversations you've been having about Alberta independence, and I really think you have an intelligent, well-developed mind. You've been in this fight for a long time, and you've got some really valid points to bring to the public domain, which to me at this phase of the game, it's really important to get the education and to get the understanding out there in the public sphere so that we can make what I call like an informed decision regarding Alberta independence, because I'm certainly of the thinking that there really is no other better option than for us to become independent. You're not going to change my vote one way or the other. But okay, first and foremost, let me read your bio here. I did
Sure.
read this book, No Other Options: Self-Determination for Alberta. It's a great read. I think people can see that there. Oh, yeah, of course it disappeared. Anyway, I will leave everything in the Substack right up to all the links to everything that you've written. You've written like multiple books, and of course, everything will be found there if you want to look up his information. But so Michael Wagner is an independent researcher and writer and a columnist for the Western Standard. He has a BA honors and MA in political science from the University of Calgary and PhD in political science from the University of Alberta. Good old U of A. He has previously written the book Alberta Separatism Then and Now, which I'm going to read that one next. And you and your wife have 11 children. So wow, congratulations. Wow, like that's almost unheard of in my realm. I just yeah, like that happened like I think like maybe 50, 60 years ago, right? Yeah, people had large families, but good for
Yeah.
you, man. And wow, that's impressive, right? That must be like I can't even imagine. Like I have like one daughter with my wife here, right? And I'm like, wow, like that's like times 10 for you. It's that's incredible. But thanks for taking the time to come on the show here and weigh in on all these things that are going on in the province right now. One thing, let's just start off right off the bat, like again, like what got you into Alberta independence? Let's just start there. Like, so how did this happen for you? And give us the main reasons why you're still on this course.
Yeah. Well, actually, for me, it goes back to the early 1980s when I was a teenager. And when Pierre Trudeau brought in the National Energy Program, like I was growing up in Calgary and I was in high
Okay.
school at that time. So my family wasn't directly affected by the NEP because my dad wasn't in the oil industry, but a lot of the people in our community would have been directly affected. But I'm not sure, like I can't explain it completely rationally, but something triggered me about my community being under attack. And so um, that's when the first major independence organizations were started, WestFed under Elmer Knudsen, and then the Western Canada Concept Party of Alberta, which became more famous. So I ended up joining WestFed and it folded, and I got a membership application for Western Canada Concept Party of Alberta. Then shortly after that, there was a by-election in Olds Didsbury in February of 1982, and the Western Canada Concept Party candidate, Gordon Kessler, won that by-election. So the first time a separatist was ever elected in Western Canada, an independence supporter. And I was so
Hmm.
excited by that that I joined that party. I was just 16. And then later that year, like Peter Lougheed, our premier, saw that the Western Canada Concept Party was growing rapidly that year. So he held an early election in November of 1982, trying to preempt an election before Western Canada Concept got too strong. So that was the first time I
Hmm.
ever participated in an election. Like I handed out brochures for the Western Canada Concept Party. Like I wasn't even old enough to vote. I was just 17 by that time, but I believed in it very strongly. So that was kind of
Yeah.
my introduction to the movement. So I stayed a little bit active in the Western. Like I was very naive. I was a teenager. It was my first time involved,
Yeah.
and but I stayed a little bit involved during the 80s because the WCC it shrank, but it stayed around, and I went to some conventions and stuff. But of course, by the late 1980s, the movement was starting to shrink because Preston Manning had this idea for the Reform Party, saying
Hmm.
those of us who want, to change, those of us who want change in Western Canada, instead of pulling out of Canada, let's form a federal party and send our MPs to Ottawa and demand that changes be made so that we can be part of Canada. Like the motto of the early Reform Party was the West wants in. We want
Hmm.
change so that we want our voice heard in Ottawa, right? So
Hmm.
Preston Manning, when he formed that party, basically almost every Alberta independent supporter ended up joining the Reform Party. And even one of the guys who was leader of the Western Canada Concept Party in the mid 80s when I was a member was Jack Ramsey. And he ended up becoming a Reform Party member of parliament from Camrose. because
Hmm.
like so many of us, the Reform Party was a very credible organization, had
Yeah.
credible leaders, and whereas the Western Canada Concept Party like had a lot of infighting that was done in public, and had
Yeah.
conflict between leaders and stuff, which kind of diminished the movement. Whereas the
Yeah.
Reform Party didn't have that kind of thing. It had Preston Manning, who was very well respected, and so this looked like the way we would get the change we wanted. You know what I mean? That's what we really believed.
Yeah.
And so most Albertans voted Reform Party, in 1993 and 1997. But somehow, uh, part of it was there was so much resistance from Eastern Canada that they didn't,
Yeah.
Eastern Canada did not want changes. And also the Reform Party began to move in the direction of wanting to be a national party that represented all of Canada so it could be form the government. And so as it expanded into Eastern Canada, some of the Western issues had to be diminished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't win in
Yeah.
Eastern Canada by that way. So anyway, the party
Yeah.
changed into the Canadian Alliance then in about 2000, and Stockwell Day became leader, and then Stephen Harper later became leader, and then they joined the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada to form the Conservative Party of Canada. That was in 2003, and then Stephen Harper won the election in 2006 to become prime minister. But see, Stephen Harper had been a Reform Party MP, and he was from Calgary. His riding was from Calgary. He was originally from Ontario, but he was representing Calgary, and so a lot of
Okay.
people in Alberta saw him as our champion in Ottawa. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
couldn't he couldn't do everything we wanted. People would realize, realistically, but and he did try to do some things for Western Canada, like reform the Senate, but by the time he tried hard and he wasn't able to reform the Senate or get some of the changes we wanted in Western Canada. So in 2015, of course, Justin Trudeau, won the election and became prime minister, defeating Stephen
Yeah.
Harper. And that's when I re-engaged with the independence movement right then and there, basically.
Yeah.
Like what had happened in the meantime is in 2009, I wrote my first book on the Alberta independence movement, Alberta Separatism Then and Now. Because I had been involved in the 80s, I was still emotionally engaged with the issue. And there was no book on the history of the movement. And I talked with some friends about it, and they encouraged me because I thought, well, the history of the Alberta independence movement should be written from the perspective of someone who supported it and was part of it. Because if an
Sure.
opponent of it had written the history, it would be different. They wouldn't get it right because they didn't know the real reason. So I knew where the best material was, and I knew the motivation. So I had a lot of fun writing that book. But the problem was when the book came out in 2009, like Stephen Harper was prime minister, and the independence movement was dead, and so there was no actual reception for that book. So
Hmm.
like it had the sales were so small that the publisher actually pulled the book out of print. Like, what's the point of having it? So when Justin Trudeau was elected, though, I was able to convince him to bring it back because I knew
Yeah.
now there would be a market. So
There you
so
go.
Justin Trudeau did me a favor in becoming prime minister
Yeah.
by in terms of my book because suddenly the book had a market. Although it wasn't a big
Yeah.
market to begin with, what really changed things was the election of 2019 because by 2019 Albertans were fed up with Justin Trudeau once and for all.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
Andrew Scheer was the leader of the Conservative Party, and so we thought Andrew Scheer, should win the 2019 election, and he didn't. Like Justin Trudeau won a minority again,
Yeah.
but that led to like the sparking of the Wexit movement. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Wexit movement. Um,
A little bit.
yeah,
Just
okay, yeah. So anyway, after Justin Trudeau won re-election in 2019, there were several very, very large Wexit meetings in Alberta in late 2019, and so I was
mm,
invited to sell my book there, and so that was the first time I got sales for that book, Alberta Separatism and Now. But what really killed it then, it was early in 2020, the COVID thing came along, and suddenly
yeah.
you couldn't have meetings anymore and stuff. So that was
Yeah.
one of the things that poured cold
Yeah.
water, on the growth of the Wexit movement. So, but by then I was re-engaged, though. Like I said, that's kind of
Yeah.
giving a brief overview of how I got engaged. Then once that book started getting some coverage, people were asking me to update it, and I thought, well, instead of updating it, I'll write a new book, Why Alberta Should Leave, and that's no other option than one you showed there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wrote that early in 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how it doesn't really. Oh, there we go. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes like, everything disappear. But yeah, it's a good book. It's a good read.
Thank you.
Actually, I
Thank you.
recommend everyone read it.
Thank you.
And
So,
it's,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, it just, it's something that like, I encourage anyone like that's interested. Everyone in Alberta should spend, I'm going to urge them at least 1 to 2 hours, in a week or maybe 2 weeks, right? Just to dial in with what's going on. And get beyond what your elected MP is saying or what the mayor's saying. Come on, guys. Like take a look at what the leadership in the independence movement is doing. There's leaders all over the place, and yeah, like my call is to try. Yeah, let's not try and attack each other. Let's try and work together. But that's
Mhm.
been quite a challenge too, right? As you can see, right? Especially if you're on X, then you can see that's the digital war zone. It's pretty entertaining, to be honest, sometimes if you can handle it. But yeah, no, it's a good read. You bring up so many good points. And it's well researched, right? And of course, one of the things that really struck out to me, if we want to get into it right off the bat, was the Triple E Senate reform, which honestly, until I got into the whole Alberta independence movement thing, I never even heard of these things, but I didn't realize these things had really been attempted before. And then, of course, because of this formula for amending the Canadian Constitution, like the 750 rule, they call it, seven
Hmm.
provinces with over 50% of the population,
Yeah,
like
right.
that you really can't actually it bring constitutional changes, right? Like, because it's just everything is set up to benefit what I call Upper and Lower Canada and the Maritime provinces because that's originally what Canada was, right? And then, of course, Alberta became rich all of a sudden, right? And the population's growing here. And then, of course, we only have six senators in Alberta. Like all these things, I had no idea. But yeah, you can comment on that a little bit. I mean, because I thought those ideas, especially the history that you brought up, these are great ideas. But of
Yes,
course, nothing changes, right? So
right, right.
what do you say about the Triple E Senate reform? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, like, I mean, it was a great idea, and just give some
Yeah,
history on that. Like the
yeah,
origin of the idea, during the 1970s, when Pierre Trudeau was attacking Alberta's oil industry, our premier was Peter Lougheed, and Peter Lougheed was
okay,
fighting Trudeau over that. So Peter Lougheed formed a committee of people to make proposals about how the Constitution could be changed for the benefit of Alberta, and
yeah,
that committee had a law professor who recommended changing the Senate so that we'd have elected senators because right now
yeah,
they're just appointed, and also to have equal number from each province. So
yeah,
that idea developed by the early 80s became well the idea of the Triple E Senate was one would be elected, senators be elected, one would be an equal number from each province, as I just mentioned, and the third they'd have effective powers. Because they didn't have
yeah,
effective powers, they wouldn't be able to do anything. So it's basically an American style Senate in a sense. You know what I mean? So that
yeah. I
actually
understand.
there was a committee, an Alberta committee for the Tripoli Senate that started, and then there got some interest from BC and Saskatchewan, so they changed the name to the Canadian Committee for a Tripoli Senate. That's by the mid 1980s, and the idea
Okay.
had a lot of traction in Alberta. In fact, like
Hmm.
Premier Don Getty, he like his party, first the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta, which was the governing party, the party itself endorsed the Tripoli Senate idea, and then our Premier Don Getty endorsed the idea himself. And then he formed a committee to promote the idea across Canada. Like this was a very popular idea in Alberta. And then excuse me, Alberta held Canada's very first Senate election in October of 1989. Like the prime minister retained the power to, appoint the senators, but Don Getty had the idea we'll have an election, and hopefully the prime minister will appoint the person who wins the election. And the winner of that election was General Stan Waters of the Reform Party. And our prime minister, Brian Mulroney, didn't want to appoint him, but he did because, Don Getty was a progressive conservative and Mulroney was a conservative. So anyway, they had some kind of friendship or whatever. So
Yeah.
that was Canada's very first elected senator in 1989 from Alberta. And Alberta
Hmm.
had subsequent elections, during the 90s and I think the 2000s. There were some other elections like that where we'd elect people who would be recommended to the prime minister to appoint. So when Stephen Harper was prime minister, he appointed some of these elected people. I mean, other prime ministers won't. I mean, other prime ministers who aren't conservative, they're absolutely opposed to the idea of electing senators because it takes away
Yeah.
their privileges and whatever powers, right? But the idea was good. If we could have
Yeah.
changed the Senate
It
along
is
those
good.
lines, that would have provided the Western provinces enough influence in the national government to oppose policies that attacked us. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that
I
would have
do.
been the kind of reform. Like that's when the Reform Party was saying the West wants in. That was one of the main things that they were
Yeah.
talking about.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, like, see, again, like see, I'm starting to understand how what Canada actually is legally. Okay. Like, I'm just talking about um, the legal mechanisms as to how this country actually really works. And of course, like just knowing simple things, like knowing that there's just over 60 million people in Ontario and there's around 9 million in Quebec, and combined they have 200 seats. Okay, federally. And then there's 37 in Alberta. See, these simple things help you understand, okay, so like from Quebec City down to Windsor, Ontario, they call that the Windsor whatever Quebec corridor, right? I mean, right then and there, like that's essentially right the Canada that pretty well governs. I'm going to say the rest of everything there is in Canada. I mean, yes, we have provincial elections and all these things, so on and so forth, but it doesn't seem like the provinces actually have as much autonomy as what it seems like it was supposed to be, like constitutionally speaking, like I don't know, I was confused because I realized there's three different levels of government now. Like there's municipal, provincial, and then there's federal. And from my understanding, like I don't understand why the federal government, like from my understanding constitutionally, they don't actually have the right to tell a province how like to develop their own natural resources, but yet they do. And like you're probably familiar with Bill the C-69 and C-48, right? Like the C-48 is like the tank. I think that's the tanker ban one, and C-69 is what they call the no more
Yeah.
pipelines bill, right? I
Yeah.
mean, but if you read, it just makes it very difficult. See, it's lawfare. I call it political lawfare against Alberta. That's what it is. And until you get like judges like to just call it out for what it is, it's like, what are we doing here? No wonder you guys are fueling. You want Alberta's money. Yet you have the nerve to take all this money, and yet you govern them on top of it, right? So you can see how this is the outcome, I would say, of I'm going to say Eastern Canada's policies, like essentially liberal policies. Like so, this is the for every cause there's an effect, right? I mean, these
Yeah.
are for me, it's very simple, actually, when you really look at like when you actually get into the nitty-gritty of what's really going on, beyond all the rhetoric, you just look at how the system is set up and you can see why this is happening. But yeah, you want to comment on that? That's one thing that struck me as I'm studying because I don't know, right? I mean, we're all busy. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Everyone's busy working their jobs, and I get it. But like, and then you realize like this isn't right. It's like an unfair business relationship. But constitutionally, it just seems like if we're not going to follow our own rules, we are heading into a place of chaos, right? Because I mean, if that's supposed to be our highest form of law, is it not? Like the Constitution, like
Yep. Right.
that's. But it's like, why are these things happening, and why you want to maintain Canada together? Well, it sure as heck doesn't seem like they do, right? By some of the policies they and the bills, right, that they put out
Yep. Yep.
against Alberta. Like, because a bill is like, of course it's laws, right? Because it becomes law, like as it's voted on in the House of Commons, and of course the Senate gets a vote on that too, right? And it's once you actually start understanding how this whole system works, you're like, yeah, like this is not cool. But then you got to get people to buy in too, right? For independence, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you got to get the buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, what do you have to say about some of those things? I know I kind of I
That's
went on
okay.
a tangent there. So
Well,
yeah, like what are your thoughts about all that?
well, just kind of as a general overview, like in my view, Canada was never perfect and the Constitution was never perfect and stuff, but I think like things were, I mean, the West has always had grievances with Eastern Canada, to one degree or another, going back right from the start, right from the time Alberta and Saskatchewan became provinces. We had
Yeah.
grievances with the federal government, and we would deal with it back in those days by forming political organizations and alternative political parties. Like, most of Alberta's political history, we didn't have the Liberals and Conservatives so much. We had United Farmers of Alberta, we had the Social Credit Party for like 33 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah.
and so we and federally, like in the 20s, we had the Progressive Party of Canada. Like we had different parties to represent our interests because we didn't trust Eastern parties much at that time. So this is how we fought back, against Eastern interests and interests that
Yeah.
were against Canada. But we still like nobody really talked seriously about independence though until Pierre Trudeau became prime minister. So like you might find the occasional editorial or letter to the editor before that time, but the first organizing for Alberta independence starts with Pierre Trudeau, and I really see him as, and I call him in my writing the father of the Alberta independence movement because he's the
Yeah.
one
Well
who
said.
made things so bad here that people went from being unhappy with the federal government to wanting out. Not a huge amount right away, but that's when it's the serious discussion started. Because one of the things about Pierre Trudeau, aside from his attacking Alberta, on the oil industry, Pierre
Hmm.
Trudeau had a different vision for Canada. He thought Canada was too decentralized, and he wanted to concentrate power more in the federal government. And so that
Yeah.
that's part of what the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was all about, was having a national document that the provinces were subordinate to a national document, and that's part of why the
Hmm.
provinces resisted the charter for a long time. Like the original charter proposal was in 1968. It didn't get agreed
Hmm.
till 1981, which was
So
like 13 years later, and there was a lot of opposition to it. And a lot of people don't realize or don't remember that there are many Canadians who were opposed to the charter, during that period of time. And actually, to
hmm.
tie this into the independence thing, is I mentioned earlier the Western Canada Concept Party of Alberta. One of the founders of that party was Dr. Ruth Gorman. who was probably Alberta's most famous female lawyer at that time, like in the early 80s. And she was
Hmm.
adamantly opposed to the charter. And her main reason for opposing the charter was it deliberately did not include property rights. Like
Yeah.
historically in the English speaking nations, we think of the three key rights: the right to life, liberty, and property. Like that's how it's been
Yeah.
summarized: the right to life, liberty, and property. And each of those rights restricts the power of the government. So when you remove one of those three rights, you're actually expanding the power of the government. So by not
Hmm.
including property rights in the charter, it actually expanded the power of the government. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so she was adamantly opposed, and so that was her main reason for
It's a
supporting,
good point.
yeah,
I mean,
Alberta.
yeah. I'm glad
Yeah,
you brought that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, property rights, yeah, that's a big one.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, yeah, and it's strange. Like, so I think you talked about this before, but why? So why was that not in there? So or who took it out or what happened there? So yeah, that's the next question. Like, why
yeah.
isn't it in there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, the original proposal with the charter actually did include the property rights, but Trudeau was trying to get support from other parties and other groups to support it, and the NDP told Trudeau if he would remove property rights, that they would fully support the charter. So he did
it
that.
was the NDP
Yeah,
that
directly. Yeah, yeah. So now
wow.
Trudeau was very left wing, and so that was a concession he
Yeah.
was willing to make, if you know what I mean. Like he would not have conceded on other points, but he was willing to concede on that. So, but specifically, the NDP asked him to take that out, and he was willing to do that. And so, we ended up with a
Wow.
charter that did not include property rights. Now we do have some property rights in Canada, but we don't have them. They're not as strongly protected as the rights in the charter. So they're
Yeah.
diminished. They're not on the same level as other rights. So that was anyway. That's part of Trudeau's agenda. Like I said, was to have
Yeah.
a charter. And I read an interesting book just a few weeks ago. It's not in any of my writings, but there's a Quebec political scientist named Guy Laforêt, and he wasn't for Quebec separation. He just wanted Canada to be more decentralized, which I think,
Okay.
like, I agree with that. And his book is
Yeah.
called Trudeau and the End of a Canadian Dream, because he sees the Trudeau changes in the Constitution in 1982 as blocking Quebec's path to having a more decentralized Canada, if you know what I mean. Like he
Hmm.
wanted Canada to be more decentralized, so Quebec would have more powers and Alberta would have more powers. He
I see
thought
what you
that'd be a
mean.
better, you know what I mean. And I think
Yeah.
that would have been a better pathway from my perspective. Like if we had more powers and we
Hmm.
didn't have to have so much, imposition on us from the federal government, that would have been better. Like that could have
Hmm.
saved the country, if you know what I mean. Anyway, we didn't go that
Yeah.
way. So there's people
No,
in
we
Quebec.
didn't. Yeah.
There's people in Quebec who hate what Trudeau did to Canada. They hate
Yeah,
the
that's
charter
interesting,
stuff.
isn't it?
And there's people here the same, like people like me have the same views.
Yeah.
But basically, the basic point I'm trying to make is I think Trudeau is the one. Pierre Trudeau is the one who really wrecked Canada. He, by his constitutional changes and other things he did, he put us on
Hmm.
a pathway that is leading us to. He's the one who, like I said, created the independence movement in Alberta, and he instituted constitutional changes that have kind of put us in a direction where Alberta needs to become independent fundamentally.
I like how you tie it back to Pierre Trudeau. I do agree because I know you wrote about too how he actually put an export tax on Alberta's oil, right? Like
Yes.
which, because he's trying to take money for the East,
Yes.
basically. That's the reason, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, all of a sudden Alberta's got lots of oil prices are going up, we're gonna tax it. Like on a level, like that word tax, it's almost like legalized theft with
Yes.
regards to what he did to Alberta. And
Yeah.
then he actually price fixed it. You mentioned these things, right?
Yeah.
Like I've learned a lot actually just from some of the stuff you talked about too. Like so that, oil would sell at a fixed rate within Canada. Like I get the mentality, but like to me, imposing that is outright, it's just wrong because you're not getting a fair price, like a fair
Yeah.
world price. It's a communist socialist move to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do this to Alberta and like of course all that's been repealed, right? But still, like, I mean, it's just wow. And then you wonder too, like, because you have to look at it like fairly, like, well, like what if Alberta did, or what if something like that happened to like Hydro Quebec, for example, right? And then there would be outrage, right? Absolute outrage, and they're like, well, that's water, that's power. It's like, well, yeah, it's a natural resource too, isn't it? Water, like it's like that's the way I look at it, but yeah, it's good because anyone to me like in the leadership role supporting Alberta independence like really has a lot of really valid points. Because I like these Forever Canada people like it not just them, there's other groups too. But it's like for one, what is Canada? I know you mentioned the first I always think of what is Canada? My only answer now is what Trudeau said about 10 years ago. Justin Trudeau is the first post-national state with
Yes.
no mainstream, no
Yes.
core identity. He said that to the New York Times, and that's
Yes.
exactly what their vision is for Canada. That's 100% accurate of how they view it. That's how he views it. That's what it's become. Like to me, it's a globalist, if I can put it that way. Carney speaks the same kind of language, right? When he mentions the New World Order, and they don't have this like obviously you're kind of defending the old Canada, which I
Yeah.
would say that's a good way to put it. You guys have talked about that. That's how I feel too. Like we're trying to protect the old Canada, but
Yeah.
that's gone. Like
Yes.
that's yeah. Not in every individual, mind you, but like federally, man, that's gone. Like look what they're doing. You just
Yeah.
have to look at what they're doing. Like I just tell people like because people have this blind sense of patriotism. They call you a traitor and all. And it's like, have you looked at what your government is actually doing beyond just flying a flag that the sugar maple doesn't even, I don't think it doesn't grow in Alberta, right? Like it's like, guys, what does that symbol even mean? And like, what is Canada today? You tell me what it is. They can't even tell. The only thing that people say, well, we don't want to see Canada geographically fall apart. And I said, that's your only argument is that. And so
Hmm.
you don't care about anything else, but as long as it doesn't fall apart geographically, okay. That's what one woman asked me, like about signing I remember I think I was approached by a Forever Canadian person. But I like that's it. That's your only argument. Okay, well, yeah, you haven't won me over, right? But it just made me laugh. But anyway, yeah, yeah, there's just some outrageous things that have happened because again, yeah, if you want to become the Prime Minister of Canada, I get it, right? Because you have you look at the seats in Ontario and Quebec, you look at where the population like to me it's just the Windsor Quebec corridor. That's essentially Canada, right? I mean, that's really what happens there is basically going to determine the outcome of everywhere else. I mean, yes, we have provincial elections, we do, but federally, like that's where the battle's won or lost, right? After
Yeah.
that, it doesn't like it's done right before they count the vote. That's why they say, right? Whatever happens there, and then when the votes start getting counted out west, it's already decided, right? Like
Yeah.
these are the problems, right? These are the problems, and to me, like if I was talking to someone that believes in the unity of Canada, it's like you have to, for one, first of all, they have to start acknowledging the problems.
Yeah.
Like you got to start looking at it from don't just look at it from how it benefits you. Okay, yeah, that's why you don't want anything to change. But what about Alberta? There's like 5 million people here just in Alberta right now. And there's another five some million in BC. So the population is growing, and everyone's starting to realize, yeah, this is not done properly, especially all the financial benefits you get from the province. See, it's just not right. In a business relationship, they'd just be out like, I'm done, right? Like we're done here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's one of the main like arguments, right? Like, is
Yeah.
economics. It's not just that, but there's a huge economic argument as to why Alberta should just
Yeah.
be done. So, yeah, what do you have to say about the whole financial aspect of things, like with respect to what's going on with equalization? I know it's a little bit strange the way they how all this stuff works. I understand that it's basically about kind of equalizing it so all the provinces that really don't have a lot of wealth, like can have similar benefits to the provinces that have more wealth and things like that. But which in
Yeah.
and of itself, I can, it's not a wrong way. It's like, hey, we're trying to help each other out. But
Yeah.
but when you look at the grievances and you look at the way, like, see, it's hey, take a look at what you guys are doing to Alberta, right? And how you're abusing Alberta. To me, that's the problem. And if you were a proper leader, you would acknowledge it. Like that's what they have to start doing. They got to start acknowledging, yeah, like what we're doing in Alberta is not right. See, that would be the starting point. But they,
Yes.
anyway, yeah. Anyway, what do you have to say about all that? Like,
Well,
what's your,
like I think you're right. Like with the principle of equalization, like helping poor provinces, I don't think people would object to that in principle. But
yeah,
the grievance happens because the biggest receiver of equalization is Quebec. Quebec is not a poor province. Like Quebec is not a poor province. Quebec doesn't receive most equalization because it's a poor province. It receives most equalization for political reasons. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
that's the basis of the grievance. If Quebec were poor people and they needed the money to like eat and stuff, I
yeah.
don't think people would
Fair
object
enough,
to that.
right?
but they get it
Yeah.
because they have political leverage. And so they get way more equalization than they're properly entitled to because of their political leverage. So that's kind of the basis of the grievance. Like for me
Okay.
and for the other Albertans, like I don't mind somebody going to New Brunswick or something, right? You know, they're poor there. That's like I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they're getting if they should get that as much as they do, but still, you know, the principle is not that bad. The problem is the abuse of the equalization program for Quebec. So that's one thing I'd
Okay.
say. Like I don't talk a lot about the economic side. I talk mostly about the historical side, but one of the important things to remember though about the financial side is equalization is just one of the transfer programs. Like there's several federal programs that in total, you know, result in Alberta giving large amounts of money. And so a term that I've heard from somebody else that's a better term that I think is fiscal transfers, because equalization is just one part of that transfer.
Okay.
And there's others. So if you use the term fiscal transfers, that's when we get those figures like 10 to $20 billion a year kind of stuff. That's not
Okay.
that's equalization plus other programs. So it's fiscal
Okay.
transfers. But a few things you mentioned earlier that I think are so important, and that was like I really think this is important, like you said, that Justin Trudeau was saying Canada was a post-national state.
Yeah.
He also
Yeah.
said that Canada has no core identity,
Yes,
and
he
and,
did.
and the New York Times when they quoted him, they said that Justin Trudeau was fulfilling his father's vision by saying those things. Like this
Isn't
is the
that
kind of
interesting?
Yes, this is like the comprehensive Trudeau view of Canada. Like Pierre
Yeah.
Trudeau did not like the Canada that he became prime minister of. He wanted to fundamentally change the country. You know what I mean? He had an
Yeah.
agenda for changing Canada. He didn't like the Canada that he became prime minister of, and he wanted to fundamentally change it. And Justin Trudeau continued that on in the Liberal Party of Canada. Even you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so like, that's why when people say they love Canada and they don't want to leave Canada because they love Canada, they're talking about a Canada that no longer exists. They're
I
talking
agree.
about the
Yeah.
they're talking about the Canada of Vimy Ridge, you know, the Canada of Juno Beach, the Canada that
Yeah.
you know built a railway across the prairies and stuff. There was a great Canada, like that's what I say.
Yes, I
Canada was a
agree too.
great
Yeah.
country. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there is something. Canada was lovable. Canada was something to defend and to
Yeah.
hold to. But
100%.
That Canada doesn't exist anymore, and that's what people need to see. Like you're saying, with the policies we have now, we are
I
not the
agree.
same country we were. Like when I was born in the '60s, the country Canada now is different from the country I was born into. You know what I mean? And so
100%.
yeah, if it was Canada of the 1960s that I was born into, like I wouldn't be
Yeah.
involved in this. It's changed
Yeah.
too much. And I actually did go back already to jump back a bit more in your comments. You brought up the export tax on oil, and like say that hasn't been in place for many years. But there's something very important about this. That was the first time a provincial resource being exported was taxed by the federal government. And our premier Peter Lougheed called the export tax on oil, like this is 1973-74. He called it the biggest ripoff in Confederation's history.
Yeah. It's
What
theft.
I mean,
I mean, well,
yeah, yeah, that's right.
right?
And so,
Like,
and then
yeah.
it got worse. It got
Yeah.
like the National Energy Program was act, and Trudeau brought in the National Energy Program in October of 1980, and that was even worse because it included an export tax plus other really bad things. And so, the point I want to make here is that no province in Canadian history has been attacked by the federal government the way that Alberta has been attacked by the federal government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Alberta is
Yeah.
different. Like
A
Quebec
hundred
or
percent.
Ontario, BC, the federal government never attacked those provinces, but Pierre Trudeau attacked Alberta in the 70s and 80s, and then of course you know with it wasn't as bad for a few years, but when Justin Trudeau came back in, he kind of restarted these attacks with his climate change agenda, which focused on shutting down Alberta's energy industry. You know what I mean? He wanted
Yeah.
to phase out our oil industry. So again, here we have one province under attack again, and it's the same
Yeah.
province that his father was attacking. So because I've had people say, "Oh, what's so special about Alberta? Like, why do you have to leave?" Well, take a look at our history, and that's why I focus on history. When you look at the history of Alberta within Canada, no province has been treated the way Alberta has been treated. No province has been mistreated the way Alberta has been mistreated. So we are different in that sense because we have been treated improperly by the federal government. And so we need to get out if we want to get treated properly, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
well, like, no, it's really important for guys like you. I mean, because you put in all the work. I always look at it like who's done the work. Like it's like with Mitch or with
yeah,
the proponent for Stay Free. I look at who has done the work.
yes,
And I just like with some of the things that I do, I like having conversation with people that have done that and they've invested a lot of time, a lot of years. And then they produce like you write your books and that's to help us essentially. But like you have to want to be helped, right? So it's kind of like you gotta get unhooked from like the Communist Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, right? Like you man, like you need to listen to something other than like government approved media. like people make arguments, oh, that's just, you're just far right propaganda. But it's like, well, look at what you're listening to, man. Like you can make the same argument like against what you're listening to. It's
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
lefty central communist propaganda, right? I mean, people don't realize that every time that you make statements, it can be inversed onto you in the same way. And like people
Yeah.
don't realize that like everything is about law to me. Like it's about like it amazes me like how people don't understand like I view people very equally actually like you're my brother like I really believe in these things like the way you treat someone like how you want to be treated is the way you should treat someone else
Yeah.
like in business just in general and I mean of course I am not a holy man by any means but like at least I feel like I'm somewhat honest and authentic and genuine and at least I can work from that place. All right, okay, you messed up here.
Yeah.
That's a good starting point, and I think that we need
Yes.
to see a lot more of that in government. Like we need to
Yes.
see people that care about the future of the young people. Like think about life outside of what you can personally get. Like a lot of people that have done quite well, that are getting early, close to retirement, the only thing they're thinking about is the pension and
Yeah.
healthcare or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, okay, I understand that, but what about like your grandchildren that can't afford a house, right? Like or
Yes.
like these types of things like that are beyond your life, you're going to be fine, right? You're going to live out the rest of your days and whatever you have your money, but aren't you concerned about what our leaders are doing today and how that's going to affect your children because it's not the same as what it used to be. The
Right.
opportunities to me, I don't care what anyone says, like it is not what it like even trying to buy a house now, a lot of the young people they don't even think that that's ever going to be a possibility, right?
Yes.
Like these things are real issues and of course, you can make a great argument with regards to Alberta independence. We can really address some of these issues. And I
Yes.
don't mind supporting like a leader that actually will lead and do what's right. Like is my
Hmm.
challenge to the politicians. It's not about I don't need to be a leader, but like I will support you 100%. Like if you start doing what's right. It's sort of like if you're logical, intelligent, and you look for the truth, you try to determine what the facts are. You're not just drinking the Kool-Aid and not asking questions. You're very aware of the lobby. Okay, so you're not bought very easily. These are the types of leaders we want. We want
Yeah.
leaders that are really genuinely not just putting up the facade and the commercial of what the institutions were supposed to be, right? Like it's sort of like, but you genuinely have to be that within yourself. I call it the inner constitution at work within yourself, not just the outward commercial or the facade or the lie, I like to
Yeah.
call it, that you project on the people that are following you, right? It's like, do you really, you can tell some people genuinely care about others. Like they genuinely want to set up systems that'll protect like the vulnerable, right? Like so that we're keeping an eye on these corporations. We're not going to be bought. We're not going to sell out. Like you can create systems and laws in place that you have leaders that actually, and you can pay them well, right? But it's sort of like you could outlaw lobbying, right? Like you could actually outlaw certain, just say, no, we're not going to have any of this. It's just there's so many different ideas out there. Like and for me, it's like I believe anything's possible, but you have to get the buy-in. Like you people, it's like some people say, well, it's impossible for Alberta to become independent. Like that's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard in my life. Of
Yeah.
course it's possible. If you
Yeah.
want it to be, it can be. But
Yeah.
if you dismiss it, if enough people dismiss it in their minds right off the bat, then it won't be. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that. But if you want it to become a reality, it can be. See, that's the power that people actually have. Like collectively, we actually can do a lot more than what you think. It's
Yeah.
just that you've been controlled and programmed for so long to think like it's a programming, right? And you need to deprogram. And you are an active player to me in what's going on for the now. Like you can read, it's really good to know history, but also be an active player in what's unfolding today,
Yeah.
right? It's like that's really important. Like, and I think you're doing that. There's many other people that are doing this across, Let's Talk Alberta too. I know Chris Scott, he's got all kinds of people talking about all kinds of things. I think it's great, right? Like, and yeah,
Yeah.
you don't agree. You know what? He encourages people to come in, and
Yes.
I think that's as long as it's respectful
Hmm.
and like you have an intelligent counter. I welcome that. Yeah, please bring
Yes.
it on. You
Yeah.
you bring in the arguments. Yeah, we want to hear them. And you know what? Like, I just wish we could come to a place where like you at least you know why you take the position you're taking. Just say, "Oh, I'm a hardcore forever Canadian. It doesn't matter what you tell me. I'm just that's it. It doesn't matter what Carney does or they don't care. They're just that's they don't care, right? They couldn't care less." But other people are like, they'll respond to books like what you're putting out and the things that you're saying because it's like it breaks the programming. And it's like because you're bringing logic to me to the zombie domain is what I call it. Like it's like okay, here's an infusion of like actual some legitimate points. I mean, there's lots of people out there like Keith Wilson too, right? I mean, he's a
Yes.
constitutional lawyer. Jeff
Yes.
Rath has more of the wild side of things, but I mean, I welcome all
Yes.
the types. And you know what? We just need to be a little bit more emotionally tough about you might not like certain things that someone says. Well, whatever. He probably doesn't like what you're saying either.
Right. Right.
So, okay, let's keep moving ahead here now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, and I mean you mentioned the National Energy Program too. Yeah, maybe I'll come back to that. Yeah, that was like I didn't know these things till up till maybe about a year ago when I started really dialing in because I'll be honest, like you have to want to care, right? It's like if you want
Right.
to be good at something, you have to make the time investment. It's like if I want to be a good mechanic or if I want to be whatever it is, a good mountain climber, you have to actually invest the time, put in a little bit of study into the theory, right? And then actually go do your practical, all these things. It's about, yeah, like investing time, like, because people
Yeah.
think, well, what can I do? Well, there's lots you can do. You just don't want to do it at the
Yeah.
end of the day. You can go to your town hall meeting if you want. You can go be a part of your school. Like, no one's going to stop you as long as you're not like outright belligerent, right? Like you can go in there, you can weigh in respectfully,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you are a part of something. That's what
Yes.
I encourage people to do. Do something. Just something, right?
Yeah.
Like yeah, like yeah, anyway, yeah, so let's go back to the just the energy thing is a big thing because I was actually just kind of made a comment on X like how I look at the Canadian politicians and see they're all trying to they're experts at assigning blame. Absolutely like whatever they can do, right? To not put blame on them. That this they're snakes, like they're absolute
Yes.
masters
Yeah.
because I look at it like they are responsible for driving away investment in Canada. It's you
Absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely.
100%. It's
Yeah.
it's because of your policies. And see, they will deflect that because they know it's true, but again, it's not about truth, but they'll try to
Yes.
blame the separatists, right?
Yes. Yes.
No, it's your policies that are driving. You talk to any of these big time investors, guys that have a lot of money, it's like you never know what the liberals are going to do from 1 month to the next.
Yeah.
Why on earth would I set up here when like you just don't know your business could be shut down because of some climate alarmist policy or they're going to save the world, right? Like when every other country in the world like is developing their natural resource, their oil sectors, right? And Canada's just I feel like we've entered into a clown state of governance. Like it's literally I would say some of the worst people you can have in charge are in charge here.
Yes.
Not every
Yeah.
one of them, but I
Yeah.
would say like 80 to 85% of them. Like I don't even understand how these people even like honestly a Walmart manager would do a better job than some of these guys. And no offense if you're a Walmart manager, okay? It's just that it's the like I just how do these people like it's a clown show and it's like there's no accountability. Like I think you talked about that too. Like just so okay, let's wait. How do you want to weigh in on that kind of rant there? So that was another tangent, but that's
So
just
there's,
what's in my heart, right? It's
yeah.
what's in my
Yeah.
heart. It's how I view it, and yeah, that's why I'm resonating with people like yourself and what you're writing, and like there's Eva Chipiuk too,
Yeah.
right? She's got
Yes.
a what empowered her group's empowered Canadians. Like she actually has written a book called Reconnect. I think it's Reconnect. Canadians or something like that. I just read it. I can't forgive me for not remembering the title, but she talks about the legal structure of how things run in the country. And again, I really feel like all of us need to be anyone that wants to be involved with this need to understand how the system works here, and then we
Yeah.
can start contributing. Like
Yeah.
in a sense, fighting back
Yeah.
within the system, within the parameters of the rules, right? In a way that like yeah, we can actually provide some legitimate pushback for them, right? Which they don't expect. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. So yeah.
Yeah.
What are
So
your thoughts on that?
like one of the things you mentioned earlier that was so important is that yeah, we can become independent. And this is actually one of the
Yeah,
good things about Canada. One of the good things about Canada is we're the only country in the world that I know of that offers a constitutional and legal process for a province or a state to become independent, like for a subdivision of the country. Like so, in 1998, the Supreme Court of Canada
yeah,
issued a ruling called the Secession Reference Case, which was was questions about could Quebec separate from Canada. And to make a long story short, the Supreme Court said a province, or Quebec in this case, but it applies to all provinces, could separate from Canada, providing it had an independence referendum with a clear question and a clear majority voted in favor. You know what I mean? That's a
yeah,
constitutional law in Canada for each province. And then the Clarity Act was based on that, which kind of added some details to that. Some of them is probably a bit too many details, but the point is that in Canada, a province can legally and constitutionally become independent without like a completely peaceful and democratic process. And
yeah,
that's what it's all about. When you're engaging in the independence movement, you're engaging in a completely peaceful and
yeah,
democratic process that Canada allows. And so this is why, the allegations of traitor are so wrong.
yeah,
We're how can you be a traitor when you say let's follow the law? Like that's not there's no definition of
yeah,
traitor where someone says, well, I'm following the law, therefore you're a traitor. You know what I mean? That's
yeah.
so
I know.
that's so bogus. It's so false. So it cannot be true. So we can become independent, and there's a legal democratic process, just like we have a legal democratic process that we follow every year with different kinds of political things, provincial elections, municipal elections, federal elections, and this is just another part of that same progress, which is democratic and peaceful.
Yeah,
Another thing you mentioned earlier too, like was the allegations are that the independence movement is causing chasing away business, and
yeah.
from
They,
Alberta, and you had the exact perfect answer there that the Liberal government has spent 10 years deliberately chasing away investment from Alberta, deliberately, not by
yeah,
accident, but by policy, by deliberate policy, and my understanding it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. They were doing that deliberately out to Alberta, and for them to turn around and say, oh, you guys, because what you're talking about, you're chasing away an investment. That is so hypocritical. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I don't
It
take that
is.
seriously at all. And something else that plays into that is some people say, well, having an independence movement is chasing away business the way that happened in Quebec. They talk about Quebec in the 1970s and how Montreal was Canada's biggest city in about 1970, and then by 1980 Toronto was the biggest city because so many people left Montreal, and they say it's because of the independence movement, but it wasn't because of the independence movement. Like the Parti Québécois, which was the independence party, they did get elected in 1976, but one of the first major pieces of legislation was Bill 101, which forced people to speak French in various contexts. Like people who had been English speaking
Yeah,
people were going to be
yeah.
required to speak English. And that is why those businesses pulled out of Montreal and moved to Toronto and Calgary, not
That's
because it
right.
was a separatist government, but because they were being forced to speak French. And Alberta,
Yeah,
like the independence movement, has no comparison to that. We're not forcing anybody to do anything. And so it's a bogus
no,
argument to say that the independence movement leads to people leaving. You know what I mean? So I just thought I'd put
yeah.
that in there. It was related to what you were talking about there too. Yeah.
100%. No, I'm glad. Yeah, you have a lot of knowledge, man. Like, yeah, your knowledge level is super high. And I know RBC released that report too. I can't remember exactly what the number was, but they came out with this stuff, right? And it's like, I wonder why, right? You can go read the report. I think Keith Wilson actually brought that one up on Axis where I found out about
Right.
that.
Right.
I can't remember exactly what the number. The number's huge.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the policy to me. Like, it's like when you get to that level of government, when you implement or pass these bills, it affects people's lives, right?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
affects investment. And see, actually, I'd like to see it. I'm glad they did that report where you're
Yes.
actually seeing, and if you can actually connect the dots in a smart way, you might actually be able to put the fear of God back into some of these politicians because it just seems there's no accountability for anything they do, and it just seems, and they use taxpayers' dollars, right, to propagandize like the people, and there's zero accountability. Like that's why it's not balanced. Like Canada doesn't have a balanced media. Like we
Right.
need balance. You
Yeah.
need the CBC needs to be actually I think Wilson and Rath were on the CBC. Good for them for interviewing them. I will
Yes.
give them a little credit.
Yes.
They need to start doing that a
Yeah.
lot more on every topic. And
Yes.
yes, COVID too. You guys need to stop like with that's an area where we don't need to get into all this. But I mean, there's been absolutely zero accountability on the other side of the conversation with all this stuff. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to say, though, the science is going to be the very tool and mechanism because you guys said to follow the science. Well, I kind of follow the science, and the science is not looking good for your cause. Because originally it was just, oh yeah, follow the science,
Yeah.
but it was more
Yeah.
like the Santa Claus complex in terms of political leaders because
Yeah.
they're just a typical yes men. See, I look at Canadian politicians, they're consensus managers. That's it. Like they don't see the weakness of they're very easy to manipulate, right? If I was a person behind the scenes, like, oh my God, Canadian politicians are like, I would say some of the easiest people to manipulate because they just you shift a little money here or whatever it is, you figure out what a person really wants, right? It's all about knowing like what drives the individual. Some people it's money, some people it's power. It just this is how I would, and people do it, right?
Yeah.
And openly too. Some of them it's very open. I always say just follow the money. Just follow the money trail, right?
Mhm.
That tells you like almost 90% of what there is to know, right? And then it's like, well, I mean, this company, you can make the argument, well, they've done the work. Well, let's see it. Like for one, with COVID, like why did you guys sign all these non-disclosure agreements, right? With our
Yeah.
money, my
Yeah.
money too, right? Like, like, and then they say, well, it was a pandemic. Okay, yes, I know, right? Like, but like, there's no transparency. See, to me, the fact that they're covering it up says everything you need to know. I'll
Mhm.
bet you
Mhm.
the next generation will condemn the generation that did all these things. Like it's because they're going to do everything they can to cover this up because
Yeah.
they know it'll be the end of their careers. And once it actually is the truth is fully out there, it's going to be a very sad reality and a very very disappointing time because it's just like why didn't you oh I was just doing my job right I was just towing the party line right yeah that's right that sounds like the Canadian standard here right it's just where it'd be nice to see someone actually make some kind of sacrifice. I don't see Canadian leaders making sacrifices at all. Like you show me one that's actually made any real sacrifice. Like because the whole system is kind of like I call it stacked now, right? Like from the judicial system to the executives to the legislative, it's like one big like it's very hard to. That's why again, I would say that we need to become independent and we can create a system where, hey, you guys really want accountability? Because this is the question I would ask. I'm not, this is what I would do. Even if I had an army of 10 million, I would ask you, what do you want? I'll tell you, like, I will not use my army, but I will just say to them, do you want a new system like of governance where there's accountability, like at the corporate level for business executives, for your government leaders? Do you want it? Yes or no? Like, I would ask them outright, or do you want to continue on with this system that you have? Because I'll tell you, if you want to continue on with the system that you have, I'll shake the dust off my feet. And you know what? You will reap what you sow. Like that's
Yeah.
what I feel is happening. Because in the end, like it said, like every man's way seems right in his own eyes. And once you actually start seeing things at a higher level, it's amazing. You see certain people trying to warn others, like that want to create something better, right? Like we want to bring these things back into the country, and yet it amazes me how many people just don't want it. So then to me, it's like, then so be it. Like
Yeah.
so be it as what you want. And then when don't come and when disaster falls upon you, right? Like there'll be no compassion or no tears shed. I'll tell you that. Because I
Yeah.
feel like this is an opportunity. Like I look at it kind of like now I'm getting a little bit all biblical, right? But like even with Israel originally, when the kingdoms were divided, right? Like eventually they broke the covenant. And if you actually like believe scripture, if you read it, it's a very interesting story
Yeah.
because you look at like there was an agreement, there was a covenant, right? There were rules, right? And as people departed from that, then their enemies were allowed to eventually the kingdoms divided, but eventually northern Israel was conquered by oh, what was it? The Assyrians, I believe, and then the kingdom split off, and then eventually Judah, the southern kingdom, too, was conquered, and the first temple was destroyed.
Yeah.
Why? Because they walked away from what I'm going to call like the covenants and the things that were established to make them great or make the nation great originally. And I believe that these principles are still at play. Like I will never, assume to speak anything like in the name of God unless I was specifically given that ever. Because I
Yeah.
believe that the true prophets of old, legitimately had I'm going to talk about the real word of God, and it bore real weight. It wasn't just like 1,000 people walking around calling themselves you know how
Yeah.
I believe there are still genuine people out there, but there's very few and far between. But they have the legitimate, I call them the true seers, because again, if you want to get all biblical, like they got the direct word of God for today. Okay, for then, and it's recorded in that history. And
Right.
there is a direct word of God for today too. But are you aware of what that is? And I would say most people are not. And like it again, it depends on the people. It's like the way I see it, if we repent, there can be a great change, right? That happens. I believe that 100%. It's all throughout history. But if we persist in a certain way, then there'll be a national kind of like it's cause and effect. It's all about law, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
balanced in grace and mercy. Okay, but there is judgment too eventually that comes. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
man, yeah, like man, have I ever gone off like today? I don't think I've gone off so much, but yeah, I know you've written too. I know you're a strong Christian man, and I've definitely struggled in my life because I've really had my faith definitely had to become something of my own. But I still see like I see two sides of myself, right? Like I see
Yep.
the
Yep.
side of me that's in complete rebellion and wants nothing to do, right, with I would say holiness, if I can put it
Yes.
that way. But
Yeah.
then when if you do there's certain individuals that I've interviewed, like even Ashman Jabed, like he was an ex-Hezbollah fighter, man, like hardcore Muslim guy, like read the Quran cover to cover every 10 days. And, but, you know, when you talk to him and he said he encountered Jesus Christ, like in jail, like in
Mm.
Malaysia, and the way he lives his life, like as if it's like a modern day version of the Book of Acts. And you know, with that man, that he had a legitimate experience and it transformed his whole life. And I mean, what can you say? It's like, yes, there are still legitimate things going on today, right? It's important to read back too, like with these things too, but I sometimes we forget, right? Like and I look at everything as interconnected. See, and you can speak to this too. When you see the Islamic world gets it. Not that I want to talk about, I'm getting into everything now, but they understand, like they don't separate the way that they govern their nation, right, with their faith. But we've done that and we've turned this into this secular society. So
Yeah.
now like what I see happening today is the battle between who gets to define right from wrong.
Yeah.
That's what you're seeing in the West, and you're seeing the total decay of morality. And what happened when countries did that? Look at the Roman Empire. Look at history. You probably know, like it's only a matter of time, like, because you're seeing that decay, and of course, look at what they're teaching in the public schools. So like you're going to have an army of these types of people that think this way
Yeah.
coming up, and they're going to be elected into positions of power, and just think about what they're going to do to the country.
Yeah.
It's just simple. It's 1 + 1 = 2, right? Like,
Yeah.
and just wait 10 years until some of these people that come out of these schools that think they're cats, and you have litter box, you know, all this. Just wait, wait.
Yeah.
Look at the NDP convention, like what happened there. I don't. It was insane, right? Like they and these people are trying to become politicians. Like, wow. Like, but anyway, yeah. Anyway, Michael, yeah, I want to get dialed back in on you. I kind of apologize a little bit here because I kind of just unleashed a lot of the things that are going in within myself, but I respect the fact that you bring all that to the table too, right? Like you bring the God factor, you
Yeah.
bring the history of what's happened with Alberta, and of course, like I think a lot of people in Alberta, yeah, like yeah, we are in direct opposition to this secular style
Yes. Yeah.
because who gets to, where do you draw the boundary, Michael? Who gets to see to me, it just keeps getting inched further and further away, right?
Yeah.
It's one little step at a time.
Yeah.
And then to the point where like we're gone, like man, it's going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah. It already is, right? We're kind of
Yeah.
getting there now. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's very sad. It's very sad because we do it's I look at it like we're choosing it collectively, right? Like
Yes. Yes.
as a
That's
whole.
right.
So like that's why you're here and other people are trying to say no, we don't have to take this path, and maybe this is kind of like like I look at it like the reason I tie it back to Israel too, like why the kingdom was divided was because of the north going a certain way, right? Like and the Southern Kingdom actually tried to stick with they stuck with it a little bit longer, right? So
Yeah,
in
that's
my
right.
mind, I see it a little bit that way, right? Like
Yeah,
at least it has that potential where Alberta could be a place where we hold on to some of the traditional things that Canada
yes,
had. Like, yeah, we're not against people immigrating, but we have limits, right?
yeah,
And yeah, we actually value our own culture, and you're not going to just be able to come here and just take over, and we're just going to be doormats for you. See, that kind of stuff needs to stop, the way I see it. But yeah, and it's a shame, and I just would like to see some of the Canadian government, federal government, take some responsibility, but they don't. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. Yeah.
yeah. So,
So
like,
yeah,
like to just to tie in with what you're talking about there, I mean, Canada was historically a Christian country. Like that was the
yeah,
worldview that was the basis of
yeah,
our country. Because every country has a worldview basis. Like there's no such thing as a neutral country, because every country, every political system says some things are right and some things are wrong.
yeah,
That's what laws are. And so
yeah.
laws, the concepts of right and wrong are always based in a particular worldview. So
Mhm.
Canada was originally based on a Christian worldview, generally speaking, and we're no longer that way. And that's part of how our country has deteriorated as people, like you say, it's individuals,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Individuals over time in Canada have turned away from God, and so the country turns away. And
yeah,
so the leaders we elect reflect our views. So as Canada became a
yes,
less Christian country, the leaders become less Christian, and so they bring in their new views, like secularism. But secularism
yeah.
in itself, they won't call it a religion, but that's what it works as a worldview or a
Absolutely. It's
religious
absolutely
perspective.
a religion. Yeah,
So
yeah, a
yes,
hundred
so
percent.
we went from being a Christian country to a non-Christian country essentially, and part of that, like part of a major part of that, is actually the Charter of Rights and Freedoms again with Trudeau. Trudeau brought that in,
Yes.
and because the Charter of Rights actually led to court decisions that ripped out aspects of Canada's Christian foundation, like it struck down the Lord's Day Act. It struck
Mm,
Bible reading and prayer out of the public schools. And in fact, it was because of the charter that the Ontario Court of Appeal struck down Canada's definition of marriage, and there was many other things.
mm.
The courts, the Charter of Rights empowered courts to make decisions contrary to the way Canada had been and helped to rip out our traditions. So what you're talking about is exactly right in the sense that we've turned away from where we were. The
Yeah.
Christianity was the basis of our freedoms and prosperity in the past,
Yes.
and because we as
It's
a
sad.
people have turned away, because we as a people, we as a like most Canadians have turned away from that, and
Yeah.
so our leaders have turned away from that, and so they're leading the country in a different direction. And one, like you said, this isn't the direction that's going to lead to freedom and prosperity. And
No, it's
it
not.
happens incrementally. That's the thing. Because it happens incrementally, people don't see it happening. Like when it's happening incrementally, it's harder to see it happening. You'll look back 10 years and see what happened, but right at the moment, because it's incremental, it's harder to see. You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
happening though. It's exactly
Yeah.
happening. So that's exactly what's happening right now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see it for what it is. Like I think we're going to the, this biodigital convergence, technocratic. It'll be governed like, like to put it simply, I think we're going to have an AI system and a social credit system of some kind.
Mhm.
It'll be the parameters of freedom will be defined by a secular style government. That's where we're heading. Little by little, step by step. A lot of our politicians are tied to, we all know the WEF, and they're not Christians, guys.
That's right.
Isn't it ironic that Christianity actually gives you freedoms, and yet there's such opposition to the Christian way. Yet you can truly be, I would say, true freedom is actually really found. Like it's quite amazing. Like I don't know the freedom that you can have like living under that system of morality. Okay, the moral system is strict, but like that's because we've normalized so much corruption. And I look at myself too, right? This is not about bringing judgment because I look at myself first and I see how I've been affected by all these things too. And that's what we
Right.
need to remember. And that's where the grace and the compassion and the love and then the message, right? The true message, right, of what that God Himself paid the price, right? See, and that's how we're supposed to transition with the message of salvation, essentially, because we are fallen. And it is sad. It makes me sad because we need leaders that care about the people. Like even Moses, he really cared, right? Like, and he interceded, and you get behind the right attitude. It's not about raining down fire in judgment. It's more like you should have compassion, you should care, right? Like and we should pray that we would find it within us to maybe like let's be better. again, like how maybe our forefathers were, right? Like, let's take a look. Like, that's what I like about what you do. You study the history. Like, come on, guys. Like, the, it's the blind leading the blind with guys like Carney and
Yeah.
these liberals are not doing you any favors. Like, I mean, you know, the big selling point with these guys, I think, is I call it the rainbow flag religion. It's totally a religion.
Yes.
I hate it when I say that, but it's like it is. It's a belief
It
system, guys.
is. It
You know,
is.
come on. Like, it's your belief system. You're trying to push it all over
Yes.
people like me. You don't
Yep.
like my stuff, but I don't like yours.
Yeah.
And I had these conversations with some people like too. It's like, can't you see, you know, from the opposite side? Like think about it. Like it's the same thing, but you're flipped to the reverse, right? It's kind of like where good has become evil and evil good, right? These are all things that have been talked about, and you say, oh no, that's all garbage. Well, you know what, guys? Like I tell you, if you think that we've come here by random chance from like literally like absolutely nothing, like to me that requires so much more faith than
Yeah.
believing in different layers and levels of things that are at work and a supreme being and an intelligent design. I mean, like I don't know, man. I've just checked out with some people, like because there is no helping them, man. Like they are gone and they're dangerous too. Like some of these people are like, man, like because they believe pink elephants create the universe, right? And they want to fly that flag, right? And it's like, man, you know, these guys are like, some of them are getting pretty violent too, right? Like, and we've got some real issues, but you know, I again, I appreciate what you're doing and the books you're writing, and I'm definitely going to spend some more time with your content. But is there anything else like you really want to highlight? Like what? Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you. I don't know if you know a lot about this. I want to try and dial it back into. I like the fact that I can talk about faith with you a little bit, but just with all the treaty stuff, right? Like Treaty 6, 7, and 8. I think there's Treaty 4 too. I think there's a little bar, but you know the whole the chiefs thing. To me, it just seems like, of course like there's a lot of kickbacks going on there, right? Because I mean, obviously the deals that they're getting now, like there's good reasons why some of these quote unquote leaders don't want to give up the deals that they have, right? Like I don't look at it as necessarily them representing their band members per se, like because I mean, well, let's put it to the vote, right? Let's see what your people, because I have nothing against like the natives or First Nations people. To me, I actually think it's an opportunity for them to create something better for themselves too. Like if you want to like lead your mind to believing that, why would you think that the Canadian government is going to give you a better deal? Like, or I don't know. What are your thoughts on everything that's going on with this? Like, if you want to weigh in there, what do you think about all that?
Yeah. Well, like I'm not knowledgeable really about the First Nations things, but I do know that they're just like everybody else. There's a division of opinion. Like there'll
Yeah,
be First Nations people that want to stay in Canada, and there's First Nations people who want to leave Canada
yeah,
as part of Alberta. I mean,
yeah,
that's just the way it is. And I've heard from people. I knew a guy who was collecting signatures near an Indian reserve, and he was having a lot of them were signing. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
when the chiefs say, "Well, we represent all these the First Nations, and we believe this," no, that's just those guys. And then there's some people behind them, but there's a lot of people that aren't behind them. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
also, my understanding is that if Alberta was to move towards independence, the different reservations would be given options. Like they're not
yeah.
compelled. They're not compelled to come to
No,
Alberta. If there's reservations that want to stay with federal government, that's a choice for them to make. You know what I mean? So they'll
yeah,
still have choices to make. They're not being forced to do anything. Their rights are not going to be
no,
violated. They're not losing their treaty rights or anything. So
no.
so I don't. I think that some of these people are like making a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, they're doing it deliberately because they're trying to stop the independence movement.
Well, it's like they're being used, right?
Yeah, that's
I
right.
see the federal government is using them as like it's like a political pawn.
Yeah,
Like it works well for the Federalists' case, right? But I don't like that style, right? It's like, what are you going to hide behind the whatever? They have their opinion, fine. They don't want to do it, fine. But don't like these federal like politicians hiding behind them. It's like that is just like makes me sick, right? Like personally, like not the Chiefs' opinion per se, but the ones
yeah,
that are hiding behind them on top of it. It's like those guys are the worst, like as far as I'm concerned, right? But like yeah, I'm just a one to think that we can create, like we can take the land. Like, you know, again, like I don't know why I'm talking about all this so much, but I've read through it's like I think about Israel initially, right, when they were told to take the land. They actually had to go take the land.
hmm
Okay. Like, but the judgment was set again. There was a reason why that land was being handed over. And
Yeah,
that's why the covenant was established, because he didn't want the people doing these things. That was made very clear, if you believe it. That it was like because they'd reached a certain point, and after a certain group of people reach a certain point, the judgment is set, and then things unfold. But yet the covenant established, right, was that he wanted a people unto himself, right, that would follow the statutes, right, and the
yeah,
ordinances, and the Constitution, if you will, right. And so I look at things very much that way under through that lens, like, and to me, like, when you've got a nation that can no longer recognize what's right from wrong, that's going to translate not only into morality but into the business world, right? Like, there's
yeah,
no like you don't realize the dangerous effects, like because they're selling you a lie, right? They're like snake oil salesmen. Like, they're smiling to you to your face. They're nice to you in person. Oh yeah, but look at their policies. Look at the bills. Look at how they're trying to control you, like these, like digitally, like what they want to do. Look at the alignments they're trying to make with China.
yeah,
I mean, is this what you want Canada to go? Like these 15-minute cities? Like, look at the policies. Look at what they want to do, because they're not they won't. I don't believe these people will tell you outright what they really think, but
mhm,
they're like you said too, like little by little Canada's being steered a certain direction, and there's all kinds of different tier levels of power behind what I call the consensus managers, which are your visual politicians, the ones out in the public domain, okay. And I mean, but they're all being steered for different reasons. There's different force power. I say some of it's fame, some of it's wealth, whatever, however you can steer the individual to accomplish a certain goal, right? It's chess, okay? It's
mhm,
just with real people. And a
mhm,
lot of people are aware of these things. It's not conspiracy, it's how it works.
mhm.
Because, like, people have different visions, right? People with a lot of
Yes,
money want to
yes,
see certain things happen, right? They
yep,
want to affect policy too, right? Like the lobby. Like,
yeah,
this is, you know, so yeah, like I think it's an opportunity. Alberta Independence is a legitimate way out to me.
yes,
It's a legitimate opportunity. Like you said, there is an actual legal pathway forward, Supreme Court of Canada, like the Clarity Act, a clear majority, okay,
yep,
on a clear question. That's why Mitch got the clear question, like rolling out there.
yes,
I was a canvasser, right? It was a great experience. Like, you really get to meet all kinds of different people with all kinds of different stories. Like, get out there, right? We're supposed to be interconnected that way. It's really quite interesting. But and then, of course, with the judge and Justice Leonard, like these liberal appointed judges, I mean, whatever, she's got 1,000 reasons why. And see, they're always trying to, this is lawfare, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
to me, that this is, those signatures, as far as I'm concerned, need to be verified. They need to be looked at.
yeah,
They need to go through the process. I would have, if it were up to me, there'd be a clear vote, like on that question.
yeah.
Let Alberta vote, and you know what? Run the campaign and let the people decide. And it's not going to change my position regardless of the outcome, but I will respect the democratic process in the
Yeah,
sense that, okay, this is what Alberta decided,
right.
right? Is there anything else you want to kind of highlight before we wrap up? Anything that we kind of missed? Like, just anything you really feel like you need to share? And like, what are your three main reasons why Albertans, like, what would you say, like, are the main reasons for you why we should become independent? So that, and then anything that you feel you need to highlight before we go.
Well, like I just think Alberta has been mistreated for the last several decades, and it's going to continue to be mistreated unless we change our situation. And like I mentioned, there is several initiatives that we've tried over the last several decades with the Reform Party and the Tripoli Senate. And since we tried to fix Canada, and we couldn't fix it from within, and so our only
Okay.
alternative is to become independent. If we want a better future for our kids, we have to become independent. And there's no everything else we've tried has not worked. So that's kind of my fundamental reason, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
also, like, the direction that the country's going, like the Liberal Party of Canada incrementally wants to remove our freedoms, and we see, some of the laws that are coming up. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to lose my freedoms. And we can't. It doesn't. It's we can't seemingly get the Liberals out because Quebec and Ontario like the Liberals so much. So unless we want to continue to lose our freedoms, we're going to need to become independent. So you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
so basically, it just comes down to if you like the direction the country's going right now, you should want to stay in Canada. If you don't like the direction and you want something better, then Alberta should pull out and start, because Alberta can have a different direction. Alberta can have a better direction. Like we do have historical differences. Like for many years in Alberta, from 1935 1968, we had radio preacher evangelists as premiers. William Aberhart was a radio.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, yeah,
Ernest. So like we have a some like that's different from any province in the
yeah.
Canada. You know what I mean? So we have a historical, like we're not drastically different culturally from say Saskatchewan or Manitoba kind of thing, but we do have our
No,
cultural differences. We are somewhat distinct historically and culturally, and so we have something we can preserve for ourselves. And like if we stay within Canada, that's all going to sink with the rest of the ship. You know what I mean? So we have
yeah.
something distinct that we can preserve. So just kind of in a summary, I guess that's some of the things I think about as to why Alberta should become independent. But I
No,
guess I can't think of anything else, that I'd really like to add.
it's
But
fine.
yeah,
Well, one thing I got to, like one of the last things I'll highlight too, is just how you mentioned the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because initially I thought, okay, well, this isn't bad, but I can see how it's ambiguous too. Like, because the language, of course, the courts decide, right? All these, I don't know what the right word is for it, but it's very generalized. And of course, they take like the supremacy, I think the preamble, I think Eva
yes,
talked about the preamble, okay,
yes,
to the Constitution, like it was recognizing the supremacy of God and the
yeah,
rule of law. And
yeah,
it's like, of course, the far lefties, right, if I can call them that, they don't want that, right, because they know that that involves morality, biblical morality, God forbid that, right? Like, we just want to do whatever we want, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, man, that's not a good idea, right? But yeah, like it's interesting, yeah, like the criticisms you have against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, yeah, and how that national document, like I guess my question was how like, do you understand how it was before that came out? Like, so the provinces had more, was it like provincial authority to just kind of do what they want before that national document rolled out? Is that a good way to put it? Or like, because basically it seems like the charter, that Charter of Rights and Freedoms just kind of made it so that the Supreme Court of Canada or the federal courts had more power to determine it depending on what their ideology is, right? And if you're a liberal appointed judge, because I know the Supreme Court of, they're all appointed again too, right? There's so
yeah,
many appointed people, like the
yeah.
senators, right? I mean, the governor general too, right? Like it's just like, and that's the king's representative, right? And when you actually look at like how, like the King's Privy Council too, like these people are, you can go to the website. I would just encourage people to go to the Governor General's website and look at how these MPs are sworn in, and they do make oaths and swear allegiance. And it's like, so maybe that's why they would use the word, like Abby used the word treason, because they do and they have. I haven't, right? But like they certainly have. When you actually look at some of these documents that are signed, I mean, because they say, oh, well, the senators, it doesn't mean anything. Well, then why do we have it?
Hmm,
Right?
hmm.
It's like you say, oh, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, well, it works to your benefit. That's the thing,
Right.
right? And it's like again, like the Atlantic Canada has like 2.7 million people, and I think they have 30 senators. Okay, between that's Newfoundland, um, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI. Right? I mean, we have like six, and we have 5 million people. I mean, I know it's not, but it doesn't actually. When you really look at it fairly, this needs to change. Like, just change it. But see, then you have to get the politicians, okay, the amendment formula, then they need to start selling it, right? So you have to get what I call the consensus managers on the
Yeah.
liberal side and whoever, they need to start talking to the people about how this needs to change. See, I know how they want to keep Canada together. Well, I don't want to give them any ideas, but like you got to start recognizing what the problems legitimately are. Like, even if it's not in your favor, you got to look at it from the people that have issue with this. Like, you want to keep Canada together, well, then you start addressing the real problems. If you don't address the real problems, you're going to keep driving this. It's just cause and effect law. This is law. It's how it would work if you were like whoever is down east. If you were an Albertan and grew up here, you would feel exactly the same way. And
Hmm.
that's what blows my mind about some of the people that are like forever Canadians or like that are from Alberta. It's like, do you even understand how it's just like govern me daddy, right? I hate putting it that, but that it's just like, what is like, why do you guys want this kind of a system?
Hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, yeah. Yeah. So, okay, just to wrap it up. So basically, yeah, the because initially I thought the charter, okay, that might be a good thing. Initially when I read it, I'm like, okay, well, but I can see now, and you mentioned that one lawyer, right? That I can't remember her name, but
Dr. Ruth
she
Gorman, yes, yes.
yeah. So I'm assuming that the provinces actually under the British North America Act, actually the before the charter came out, it was arguably better, eh? Like, would you agree with that? That it was better
I,
before the charter?
I think so because see, one of the things about the charter, this is one of part of Trudeau's project, and actually I referred earlier to that Quebec political scientist Guy Lafayette in his book. He talks about
Yeah,
see Trudeau's vision was Trudeau like Canada before the charter, like the provinces had more powers to have unique policies. So by having a
yeah,
charter that would homogenize the policies. So Guy Lafayette explained it like Quebecers like to think of themselves as Quebecers, but Trudeau didn't want them to think of themselves as Quebecers. He wanted to think of them as themselves as Canadians who lived in Quebec. You know what I mean? So
I see.
Albertans, we wouldn't see ourselves as Albertans. We'd see ourselves as Canadians who just happen to live in Alberta. So we'd have a homogenized conception of Canadians who just happen to
Yeah.
live in this province and that province. But historically, like Quebecers have thought of themselves as Quebecers, and Newfoundlanders thought of themselves as
Yeah,
Newfoundlanders.
sure.
Albertans have thought of themselves. So that was more the way it was before the charter, whereas the charter has this project of trying to make the provinces more and more over time, incrementally through judicial
Hmm.
decisions. The provinces
Yeah.
are becoming their policies are kind of coming closer and closer together because they have to fall under this national document. Whereas before they could be different, now they have to be more and more the same
Hmm.
over time. So I do think the provinces had more powers before the charter, and that's actually why the provinces wanted the notwithstanding clause because that gave them at least
You said that. Yeah.
yeah
Okay.
yeah
Yeah.
that gives them at least an opt out from time to time. But yeah
Okay. No, that's good. Yeah. That's because I like that point. It makes you think because I like things that make you think and yeah, I can see it from the Federalist point of view why they would want to have that, but I can also see too the problems with that and why there would be pushback on that. So I like those
yeah
kinds of conversations instead of just accepting everything for whatever. Like this is what's got to stop in Canada. Like we need people that actually can critically think. And it's not that you want to just oppose something for the sake of opposing it, but I think if it's having the right attitude and the right spirit behind what you do. I think the recurring theme of our discussion too is that the policies that come against or the bills that come against Alberta, it's all done in the name of climate alarmism, and that's not obviously not my term, but that's why these things roll out. That's how they do it. That's how they sell it. But like we are actually damaging our own nation by being this way. And
yes
it's not that you don't extract the oil responsibly because we can do that. And
yeah
they do that. We can do that. We have the ability to do that. But I mean, to me, it's just absolute insanity, right? Like and I do believe that Canada is really at a point where the leadership is responsible. Like I like how you blame Trudeau, the Trudeaus. It's
yeah
both of them, right? They've
yes
really fanned the flames of
yes
Alberta independence. It's the you want to call it the liberal government? Yeah, it's your guys' fault, and you
yes
need to start taking responsibility for like you just spend all the taxpayers' money, you come up with all these bills, and again, it's because like they have 200 seats between Ontario and Quebec, right? And you start understanding how this whole system works and how bills are passed through the House of Commons. I think how many seats are there now? I think there's I can't remember how many there are, but when these bills come through, it gets voted there, right? So if more of them are liberal minded, if I'm going to put it that way, guess then it comes through. So
yeah
they are running at least federally,
yeah
right? But I
yes
guess okay, we have the notwithstanding clause. But I get why Danielle Smith is playing. Like I don't think it'll work, but I do get her mentality, but I think it's just being in the middle and it doesn't work at the end of the day. So like to me, like I think she's kind of I mean, she's always said, at least like from what I've heard, like a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, but it won't work down yet. Like what I would
right
tell her, like I don't know what she really thinks, but I see like that's an oxymoron. It cannot work
mm-hmm.
because it, like you said, and I will reference, go talk to Michael Wagner because you know what? He can tell you why it hasn't worked. Okay. He's got the evidence, he's got books. Okay. So people have tried. And I want to
yes
emphasize the fact that you highlight that Alberta, let's close with that. Like that Alberta's
sure
really, really tried hard,
yes
right? Like to stay within Canada. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I would say too, because actually, originally, believe it or not, I was actually born in Montreal. Like I'm not French by descent or anything like that, but I have a strange history where my mom was born in South Africa. She was adopted and raised in Australia. My dad was actually born in England, but he became an MD and a psychiatrist ultimately, and he took a job in Quebec, and we were all born there. So it's a wild. But I spent the first 10 years of my life there. Of course, I didn't understand any of the politics, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But but I've been working out and living in Alberta for over 20 years. Like I worked in the oil patch for pretty well my entire career out here because once I found out the work was here, so I'm actually someone contributing and I totally understand what's going on. And I think it just needs to be fair. It's just like a business deal, man. Look at it as a business. Like if you have a business partner, just say I'm Quebec and you're Alberta, like, well, let's just do things so it's everyone's happy, right? We'll come up with a contract and it
Yeah.
should be simple, right? But the way it's set up, it's I call it like lawfare that's set up to the disadvantage of Alberta and the abuse. It's a toxic relationship that's gone on for decades. And it's legalized
Yes.
toxic relationship, okay?
Yep.
And you don't believe me? Well, go talk to some of the lawyers, excuse me, talk to people like you. Go look at the people. I'm going to say I'm just like a signpost. Like, but go look at the people that are doing the work. Like, okay, you want to listen to the other side? I said, well, go listen to the Keith Wilson and Jason Kenney debate. I mean, but Jason Kenney, he knows a lot. Okay, I listened to the debate. He's very knowledgeable, but he doesn't, all he's doing is towing the party line. He's a
Mhm.
federalist. He
Yeah.
doesn't like the arguments that come against him is like, yeah, well, what's your plan to change Canada? They don't have any.
Right.
He's
Exactly.
just fine with it continuing on the way it is. See,
Yeah.
that's his position. I get his position. He just wants it to continue on. He'll keep prodding them. He'll keep playing that game. Nothing's ever going to change. But
Right.
that's what and see, that's what Danielle Smith is doing. It's a game. It's like a game. It never
Mhm.
stops and it never will. And it's like, because it's the only way out of this is legitimately if the people, that's why we're pursuing the legal pathway forward, right? We're advocating for the legal pathway forward because there is a legal pathway forward, like as you've referenced the Supreme Court of Canada's decision with the Clarity Act, clear majority, clear question. Yeah, you can't. We are just using the law in a way that you guys don't like.
Right.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, like or closing remarks on all this? I appreciate the talk. I like talking to Alberta Independence
Yeah.
people. I enjoy it. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
I think the final point is Alberta has two choices: independence or the status quo. Because, like you say, they
yes,
don't they don't
yes,
have positive changes to offer us. So, if you like
no,
the status quo, if you like
yeah,
status quo, well, then Alberta should stay in. But if you want change, positive change, the only avenue to positive change is independence.
yes, 100%. Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate your time. Yeah, you got me on some tangents here, man. Yeah, I try to dial that back a little bit, but I appreciate that. That's kind of like just the way I am. But yeah, I know people can find you on YouTube. Is there anything you want to go over on your website, or I gonna leave the links there? We can
Okay.
go over it if you would like.
Yeah.
Um, I actually
I'll
just
just
hold on. I'll
I'll
share
just
the
mention.
screen.
Okay.
Here it is.
Like I'll just,
You, do you see it?
it's just starting to switch to screen share. Yeah, that's my website there. But just so people know, there's the best place to get my books is from an online homeschooling store called Merchant Ship, and so the
There you go.
website is there, that's right, yeah, merchantship.ca. And if you can search my name there, and my books will come up. So merchantship.ca if they're interested in my books, and then of course you showed my website already too. So
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, thanks very much for your time. And
thank you.
also you're on yeah, you're on YouTube. So, yeah, I'll put all the links in the Substack article. I'll send you the article too, and then I'll make a
Great.
couple, like I'll make a short video clip too, put it on Facebook, and then just hopefully people will buy your books because like you're a balanced individual too, like you're like a voice of reason, like so yeah, that's why I point people to guys like yourself too, right? So it's about gaining knowledge so you can make an informed decision. Okay.
Yes.
So thanks a lot, Michael, for your time and take care, man, and God bless and thanks for everything you do. I appreciate the work that you're doing in the world. So take
Well, thanks
care.
for having me on your program. It's great to be with you.
Yeah,
Good to
thanks.
meet you.
Yeah, you too.